Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, and I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and CJ Vogel this morning, stepping in for Jerry Hamilton. CJ, we appreciate that. Appreciate having you on.
Look at that shirt CJ's wearing. Man, I can see it from here.
I got to put it up.
It looks good in the morning, huh?
Oh, man. Well, guys, tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get your questions in. It's also Hump Day with Heels, so we'll have Tony Heels joining us here in just a little bit. But first, guys, let's go straight into Vanderbilt. And I actually want to start with opening statements made by Clark Lee, the Vanderbilt head coach, and I'm going to play that for you.
Obviously, we shift to this week, which is, again, a great challenge for us. Texas is it's well documented, their talent. They're very well coached. And whatever their ranking is, this is one of, if not the best team in the country. So we're excited to be able to compete with them. But really, it's about us. It's going to be about Vanderbilt football playing to our highest level, having our best performance of the year, and not doing things that are independent of our identity, running to win, point limitation defensively, attacking the ball and protecting the ball. Those will be the things that unlock success. I think anytime you're dealing with the level of skill that will be on the field for their offense, it's going to be about how you vice tackle and compress space on the perimeter. Obviously, we have to force them to go the long way, and so we can't allow for explosive touchdowns. In terms of our offense, it's how we find the space and create the space. It's a front five that work together to create movement, and a quarterback and a receiver core that are opportunistic with the space that exists in the secondary. And we'd love nothing more to make this a really ugly game that comes down to time of possession and creating extra opportunities for our offense. So
there you go.
He sounded like a Vanderbilt coach. He used some big words in there. I think Clark Lee has done a nice job. If you would have told me before this season where Vanderbilt was headed, I would have said maybe looking for a new coach. Now I can tell you they found one. And he's I believe he's a Vanderbilt grad and a Nashville native. He has done a tremendous job with this team. But I will say this, as he mentioned in that comment there, they are looking for ways to create time for their offense. He talked about time of possession. He talked about limiting big plays for the Longhorns. But really, CJ, his success this year has not been on defense. It's been on an offense that a year ago was averaging just 20 points a game. And now they're way up there. What they scored 40, for example, against Alabama. That's just unheard of for Vanderbilt. Has that been the biggest difference in your eyes for the Commodores this year?
It's been the way they've taken care of the football, and I think that's the biggest thing. They only have 2 turnovers this year. You look at who leads the country right now and ball protection. It's the service academies. It's Army and Navy 1-2, and then Vanderbilt's tied right there with them, and that's the biggest thing for me. With Vanderbilt over the years, it's not been that, they've been tremendously under-talented. They haven't been up to par with the SEC teams, but they've been sloppy. And I think right now with Diego Pavia stepping in for that for that offense, he's a seamless transition to lead that offense, and he's smart with the football. He's an experienced quarterback, and he's a gamer. So he's making things out of nothing, and he's doing the right things in the system that creates opportunities for them to move the football. And that's the biggest part, because you watch what they do, Bobby and Blake, and they bring teams down to their level and force them to play their game. And that's what he's talking about in terms of the time of possession. 11th in the country in time of possession. You look at the teams above them, it's all service academies, and it's all teams that are running the ball about 60-40, 65-35 splits.
Yes. The one thing I would say to all of that, if you'll put that stat sheet back up there,
You will.
Blake, I want to say that look who leads the team in catches for both of these teams. The tight ends. Gunnar Helm leading the Longhorns this year with 27 receptions. Eli Stowers with 33 for Vanderbilt. He's a tight end that could end up actually competing with Gunnar Helm to be the first team All-SEC tight end. So we'll see that. Also interesting, the quarterback leads the team in rushing for Vanderbilt. He is the straw that stirs the drink for them. Unquestionably, I think Texas is going to have to really try to hem him in, and that will be the key to the game if they can handle that combo, the tight end and the quarterback in the run back pass game, because what they like to do is fake and get it to Stowers quickly.
Yep.
And so you have to defend one or the other quickly, and then as the play develops, you have to get Pavia on the ground, period, because he is a good scrambler.
Hey, what a journey it's been for Eli Stowers, by the way. That was a former Texas A&M quarterback that transferred immediately over to New Mexico State, obviously followed Diego Pavia to Vanderbilt. So that's a heck of a football player and athlete to make that transition and to your point, Bobby, be in contention for that first team All-SEC position just a few years removed from being a quarterback.
Some folks asking in the chat this morning where Jerry is. Jerry is on his way on I-10 currently, going to see some recruits. He will be in the state of Florida sometime tomorrow, I believe. He's on his way now, though. Big time trip for Jerry over the next 10 to 15 days. Jerry always likes to say, when Texas goes on the road, I go on the road. So that's what he's doing with the Longhorns, having not only going to Vanderbilt this weekend, but also ending up with a bye week afterwards. So going to be a lot of that. I want to say this also. People are asking about the tailgate on Saturday. I have some information on that. We're going to be meeting, and feel free. It's first come, first serve. I can't guarantee a certain amount of space or whatever, but it's literally The Local is the name of the bar that we're going to be meeting at. It opens at 11 a.m. It'll be first come, first serve. Buckets of beer, wings, nachos. They have all the bar food you could possibly want. It literally is about 250 to 300 yards to the stadium from there. We'll be over there. I'm going to get over there around 10:30 personally, just hang out. And then the bar actually opens at 11 o'clock. It is a nice, easy place. It's going to be crowded, would be my guess. But it is not a Vanderbilt bar. It is more of an opposing team place where people congregate. So, again, The Local, Nashville, 110 28th Avenue North, Nashville, Tennessee. If you're staying downtown, this is the important part of this. You can easily Uber to this. Just take a quick Uber to The Local, Nashville, if you want to come in for the game. We'll be there from 11 o'clock to at least 2:30. The game starts, obviously, at 3:10, 3:15 on Saturday.
There you go. Thank you for that, Bobby. And if you don't mind, I'm going to let you go ahead and tell everyone about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam Lowy is a good friend of our program here, visiting with us. Adam Lowy, the Lowy Law Firm, been in business for more than 20 years, helping injured Texans across the state. Visit him at loweylawfirm.com if you've been hit in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind. The reason why here is he gives you a no-holds-barred free consultation to let you know up front whether or not he thinks you might be due compensation. Again, visit him, loweylawfirm.com. Thanks, Adam, for your sponsorship of Coffee and Football and On Texas Football.
All right, guys. Well, it's Wednesday, which means we'll get our first SEC availability report here later this evening. Anything you guys are expecting, maybe some good news, whatever it may be, what's your thoughts on that before it comes out?
CJ, you had some news on Trey Wisner yesterday that I think you broke a little bit. Talk about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, Trey Wisner was in a green non-contact jersey earlier this week. I expect that to be the case moving forward this week. We'll see what his decision will be or what his status will be for this game this week. And, of course, he left the game early in the fourth quarter a week ago with a bit of a right shoulder ding. I don't believe it's going to be something that's too severe in terms of a long-term absence. However, with Texas having a bye week after Vanderbilt, it's one of those situations that you can expect Texas to be very cautious with to get him fully back up to speed before that third phase of the season when Texas hosts Florida, goes to Arkansas, hosts Kentucky, and goes down to College Station for the final game of the season. And then I think Texas will be very limited with Andrew Makuba. Of course, for those that watched his injury in live time, I think you're looking at it and hearing a sprain or hearing week to week and rejoicing because it didn't look very pretty in real time. And that's another situation where Texas, with 2 weeks before that final phase, I think that's one that you see him being listed as questionable. And if he goes on Saturday, it's in a very limited role.
Hey, I got to say this. Look, I'm a little concerned about Trey Wisner right now because that really limits Texas offensively with what they can do on numbers. That would mean Texas may have to go 4 wides at times because Jaden Blue can't play the whole game. I don't know. Jerry seems to think it's going to be time for Jarrett Gibson to step up, and he may not be needed as much in pass protection, but I mean, look, Texas, of all things that Texas should be able to do against Vanderbilt, it's throw the ball, right? Because Texas has been able to throw the ball effectively this year against teams that couldn't get after the quarterback. And so I'm a little worried that you put Jarrett Gibson in there and all of a sudden he blows an assignment and it's instead of 2nd and 3 or another first down, Jarrett Gibson gives up a sack and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 15, you're behind the chains and you're playing catch up to a team that wants to control the ball. So we'll see how that goes. But big stuff ahead for the Longhorns. I hope Texas gets it going. Hey, Blake, you wanted to talk a little bit this morning about the Longhorns setting some records about television viewership. Yet again, the Longhorns and Georgia, as well as Alabama, Tennessee, doing something that's never been done before this past weekend.
Yeah, that's correct. So let me bring it up here. This is from Front Office Sports. It's the first time since 1996 a single network has aired 2 college football games with 10 million plus viewers in one day. Alabama, Tennessee had 10.7 million viewers. Georgia and Texas had 12.9 million. Georgia and Texas is also the most watched game of the season now. So not the one you want everybody to see, but hey,
I was going to say that was a little bit of a stinker at times. At the same time, it carries on why TV executives consider Texas a little bit different when it comes to negotiating contracts. Texas, the most watched program in the country at this point.
Yeah, it just means more on those 2 games, right? Are we doing that right, Bobby?
Yeah, it does. That's the SEC way. I think that, those are things that are nice to talk about. Of course, I'd rather 1 million people watch and Texas win. So I'll say that. But it is one of the reasons why it was a no-brainer for the SEC to go after Texas, despite protestations from the folks in Aggie land. Texas just carries a different level of weight. That's just the bottom line. And so as we go forward and see what the next step is in this super conference era, Texas is going to have a place at the table, no doubt, especially if they keep playing and keep winning a lot of football games. That just adds fuel to the fire for Texas.
Without a doubt. All right, guys, we're going to move on here. Still a lot more to talk about. We'll get to the questions here in just a little bit as well. But first, CJ, I know you dropped some recruiting notes over on OnTexasFootball.com. What's the latest with recruiting?
Yeah, absolutely. Some notes on the 2026 class and some big-time visitors that were on campus over the weekend. We'll start with Jalen Lott. He made it to Texas. He watched the game against Georgia in person. What's interesting there is he will be headed to Oregon this week. Obviously, Oregon has an illustrious track program. Track is very big for Jalen Lott. He was an All-American level tracker. Again, his father's in the Texas Hall of Honor right now for high jump. I mean, he was a tremendous athlete back in the day. Jalen certainly following in those footsteps as well. He's a junior Olympian back earlier in his athletic career and now a heck of a football athlete and someone that Texas is heavily recruiting on the defensive side of the ball right now. I talked with Adam Guthrie as well, the Miami Trace, Ohio offensive lineman. He spoke with Kyle Flood, spoke with Dia Bell, was able to hang around Sunday and take in all of the city, take in the campus a little bit more. That's someone that reached out to Texas following the commitment of Dia Bell. And why is that important? Well, you talk about quarterbacks being kind of the ringleader of your class. when Diabell committed, he instantly got on the phone or got in communications with the Texas Longhorns and said, how can I become someone that y'all are taking a look at? He has about 28, 29 offers right now and made it to campus for his first game. And then a big note in the 2027 class, quarterback Brady Edmonds, one of the top signal callers in the entire country, he earned his offer at the June 1st elite camp, has been someone that Texas has heavily recruited. And you know what happens when Texas offers a quarterback early, they become a high priority. He was unable to make it in this past weekend, but he did tell me that he's looking to reschedule for either the Kentucky game or the Florida game in the month of November. So that's something to watch right now. Ohio State currently one of the big contenders for his recruitment early on. But Texas, again, someone that is heavily recruiting the signal caller out of the West Coast, Huntington Beach, California. He's a heck of a football player and someone that I think Texas is going to make a big push for at some point in that 27 cycle.
Hey, CJ, I got to ask you, you mentioned Nick Robertson, who's one of my favorite players in this class. Tell folks a little bit about the big lineman out of Houston, because he is, well, a lot of people talk about the offensive line, and they talk about the two guys or three guys even up in the Metroplex. There's one down in Houston that's getting a lot of love from Kyle Flood and those guys.
Yeah, the offensive lineman at a Klein High School in Spring, Texas. He's a heck of a football player. He's very aggressive. He was on campus. He told me the visit went very well, and I think that's a great sign. I don't think that's different from any other visit that he's been to Texas with. I think this is his third trip down to Austin as well this year. And again, Texas, Jerry Hamilton has mentioned it several times. There's probably three guys in the state of Texas that Texas would take a commitment from on the offensive line in the 26 class this moment, and Nicholas Robertson would be one of them. John Turntine, Toa Katoa, the other two. It's a heck of an in-state crop right now, and Nick Robertson's certainly in that conversation to being up near the elite of the elite in this class early on. And again, that visit went very well. He spoke with Kyle Flood, Steve Sarkisian prior to the game. He was able to take in all of the festivities with the flyover, the smoke, the everything that made DKR so special on Saturday night.
One to watch for, in my opinion. Just remember that name, Nick Robertson out of Klein.
There you go. All right, guys, we're going to have Tony Hill joining in just a second. But first, I wanted to read this comment here. I think this is awesome. John Spencer says, CJ, I was in a doctor's office, and the lady next to me caught me watching on Texas football. She mentioned her son is CJ. The smile on her face was awesome. She is so proud of you. A wonderful woman. Congrats.
That is awesome, John. Thanks for sharing that. I was actually at home in Dallas that weekend whenever I guess y'all ran into each other, and my mom came up and was like, you know what? You wouldn't believe it. I ran into somebody watching the show in the wild. I couldn't help but poke in. I was like, oh, Mom, here we go. But no, that's a really cool story, and thanks for sharing that. And, of course, I hope my mom was,
she's proud of you, CJ. She's proud of you.
As possible, Mom. Thanks for
being as a parent, like back when I was your age and I didn't have kids yet, I was like you. I was a little bashful. Mom, don't overdo it. Now that I'm a parent with two kids, as you say, out in the wild, graduated high school, let them do it, dude. That's their moment to shine and be happy about the progeny they produce, dude.
And I know she's watching today, so good morning, Mom.
Hey, John, thank you for that note, too. That's really nice of you to share that with everybody. Yeah. All right, let's welcome in Tony Hills, the man, the myth, the legend, Tony Hills. How you doing, Tony?
Hey, man, it's all smiles on the Western Front. How you guys doing? How y'all holding up?
We're doing good. What did you – I got to ask you, you are the constant you're a constant good chipper guy, I guess is the best way to put it. There wasn't much positive to take out of that Longhorn loss to Georgia. What did you think? And let's talk a little bit about going forward against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, listen, man. I mean, hey, at the end of the day, we knew that this was a possibility. When you play good on good, you got to execute. We talked about it. And I said, I never gave the win to Texas. I said the team that executes the best is going to win the game, right? And obviously, you got to give your hats off to Georgia. They came in and they did what they were supposed to do, and Texas did not. And the reality of the situation is that offensively, when you look at defensively what they were given and what they did, they were the reason that it was an 8-point game in the second half. So you tip your hats off to the defense. Yes, do you want them to get that stop before that last touchdown and give them over to 30 to 15? Absolutely. But as an offense, you have to show up. And guys, like if you look at all of the games prior to, this is what we've done all year. We've always started slow. Defenses come out, done what they needed to do, and then we get it rolling. You can't do that against good teams. But the reason why I'm so happy, Bobby, is because after a loss, you know, when everybody's not on the bandwagon anymore and everybody's falling off and it's just you and the guys, that dark time, that Bane moment, right? I was born in the darkness, right? All of that stuff, right? You get back to what really matters, and that's focus, right? And so Sun Tzu has a wonderful quote where he says, in the midst of chaos also lies opportunity. So Texas still has everything right in front of them. Nobody's coming out unscathed in the SEC. There's a lot of one-loss and some two-loss teams, right, for the contenders. So at the end of the day, what you want in this particular space is to be able to control your destiny. Texas does that, and they do that one game at a time, starting with Vanderbilt. And I can guarantee you that there's not going to be a sneak-up situation with Vanderbilt. No, that they have all the attention of Texas right now, which is good. So you get back in the lab, you see what didn't work, you fix it. Now, if you're looking at it from positional aspects, I mean, obviously we're used to seeing our offensive line dominate. They did not do that. But when you go back and you watch the film, right, they didn't play horrible. I think I found a article online where they went out and graded out, and Kelvin Banks graded out pretty high at 89.9. I know him, Williams, and it was one more guy. They each gave up a sack. So 3 out of the 7 sacks that we had was you can credit to the offensive line. At the end of the day, and I've heard Coach say this, and I've heard Quinn say this, he has to play better. The reality is all of their hopes and dreams falls on the quarterback going out and executing, right? If you're not doing that, you don't stand a chance. We don't win the national championship without Vince Young. Texas doesn't get to the national championship without Colt McCoy. So at the end of the day, it's on Quinn to look himself in the mirror and figure out what's going on, why have I regressed, and now put it on my shoulders and go out there and be the Quinn Ewers that I know I can be and drown out the noise. Everybody has expectations, right? But nobody can have a bigger expectation than you have as a player, right? And so that's the reason why I'm sitting up here smiling. These next 5 weeks, we get to see who Texas truly is. There's been adversity. All of the rah-rah is gone, right? And now it's you versus you. And y'all have to go out there and put it on tape every single week for the next 5 weeks to get to where y'all want to go.
I really love how you talked about
how they respond.
Tony, I really loved how you talked about execution right out of the gate, because that's exactly what Steve Sarkisian talked about out of the gate in his Monday press conference. He said, Tony, essentially, look, yes, there were problems. There were problems everywhere. There were passes dropped. There were blocks missed. There were situations where he was hoping to get just 3 points instead of 7 on from the defense. You know, he said, look, everybody has to execute better if we're going to win. It's all of those things rolled up, not just any one player. As a former player yourself, how do you take that in and process a loss like that? That's very difficult. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You know, you personally may not have had the worst game. You mentioned Kelvin Banks, but some other people did. How do you as a team kind of coalesce and come together?
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. I agree with Sark as it pertains to the execution, but we also got to coach better. I mean, the reality is we got our coach. So let's not act like that didn't happen, because it did, right? When they threw some things out there that was unexpected. I saw where they would show man coverage and at the snap of the ball drop in the zone, right? What is the answer to those looks when we continue to see that? Will they roll coverage strong, right? But then they blitz backside weak corner. Where are the hot routes for those things? So I think the loss falls on everybody, right? It's not just one individual group, right? So that's the first thing. Secondly, how do you bounce back as a team? Listen, athletes know when they don't put their best effort on the field, when it's just not clicking. Like, guys, when I was at Texas, I can promise you, there's only been one season where we won every game. And we all celebrated, right? So the reality is that, I was fortunate to be on teams where we had more wins than we had losses. At the end of the game, wins and losses come a dime a dozen. How do you respond after adversity, right? And that's the reason why I love this game. So in my eyes, There's more. What does it look like? There's more attention to detail, right? We're putting the phones up. We're probably not on IG and social media as much. We're probably quiet in the meetings and locked in and asking more questions to make sure that we understand exactly what it is that we're supposed to do. We're probably a little bit chippy and pissed off in practice, right? So there's going to be some whistles blown and some cool outs, right? As an offensive line, I can only speak from that group's perspective. You know, you didn't play your best. You didn't give your best effort out there, and you know you're better than that. So now what happens is whoever the next opponent is a nameless gray face. You're just wanting to go out there and to dominate like you know that you should. So there's going to be I believe there's going to be a lot of attention to detail. There's going to be a lot of chippiness in practice. But I think that's what it takes. Listen, as gold is tried in the fire, so is acceptable man in the furnace of adversity. Texas is facing adversity. They have been forged in the fire. They saw what it looks like. If you want a national championship, this is the caliber of team that you're going to play, right? So now that you've seen it up close and personal, if that is what you're wanting to get to, which I believe everybody says they want, then how do we elevate our game so that the next time we have our opportunity that we go out and we do what we're supposed to do? So that's how we look at it.
Yeah, Tony, I know that this whole season has kind of been a new start for Texas. You're in the SEC, you're playing new opponents, you're facing new schemes, you're going against brand new conference essentially, but in a lot of ways, it's very similar to what we saw a year ago, right? Texas loses to Oklahoma and their backs are now against the wall. Middle of the season, every game is very important. You have to look at it as if a do or die to make it to your ultimate goal of winning the Big 12 championship. That's still applicable this year. How does that carry over in the locker room of guys who have kind of been there, done that, understood what it takes to get there, and now have to implement, a new kind of solution or recipe with, some new faces around them to get back to where they were the year before, but also achieve what the goals on the table were coming into the year?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, experience propels passion and passion propels purpose. So yes, you can lean on that, but you have to remember too, CJ, that this is a new team, right? Although, we've lost some guys, right? Jatavion Sanders is not coming out of that locker room, right? Brooks is not coming out of that locker room, right? So what the guys that you have in that locker room, they got to do some real soul searching and understand, like, yeah, look, we've been in this situation before and we've come out on top, but this is a new team. This is a new year. So this team particularly has to understand who they are. And Sark talks about it, right? We're going to play our game. We're going to play to our standard. Last week, you didn't play to your standard. This is a new week. You have the opportunity to do that. So I think that you can lean on that experience, and that's great. But at the end of the day, after all of the talk on our end, those guys are the guys that got to go out on the field and they got to put it on the line every single weekend and come out with a victory. And the only way that you do that is you look at the things that you've been failing at and you fix it. Like we're 6 weeks in, we shouldn't be having false starts, right? 6-7 weeks in, we shouldn't be having false starts. We got to hit these particular passes. We can't drop balls, right? We can't have holding penalties. Like all of these things, we can't start slow, right? All of these things that we've been saying, you can't keep saying these things and not fix it, because then it just becomes word salad and there's no action behind it. So for me, Bobby, why you see me smiling, and Blake, why you see me smiling is because I know what this feels like. And now I want to see. I'm just sitting back like this, like, okay, let's see who we are. Now I get to see who we are. We thought we knew who we were, but now we're going to find out, and we'll find out this Saturday. So that's how I look at it, CJ. That's the thought process that I come from.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
True character will be revealed in adversity.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Hey, Tony, we got a viewer question for you. This one from Zane Petty. He says, good morning, Tony. How much harder does it make your job as a tackle when the quarterback is not stepping up into a clean pocket?
Fair question.
It's extremely difficult, but I'm going to answer that question this way. Is it extremely difficult? Absolutely. The level of difficulty elevates exponentially. Here's why. Because as a tackle, we're taught that a quarterback is to take a certain drop, and we're wanting to get that particular defender on speed rushes at a certain depth around the quarterback and stay with him, right, to make sure that he doesn't retrace and come back. When you're executing that, but then the quarterback is dropping back even further, then now what happens is instead of taking 3 kicks on a 5-step or a 7-step drop, 3 or 4 kicks on a 5 or 7-step drop, now you have to take 5, but that's inconsistent. And the thing about offensive line play is it has to be consistent. That's the answer to that question. Here's what I say: block his ass anyway. Because at the end of the day, there's no excuses, no explanations. There are only results. So you have to block them anyway. So if you see that this is what's happening, if you felt that, you go and you talk to the quarterback and you ask, hey, I'm just trying to figure out whether you're a little deeper on the drop. It's like, yeah, man, I took a deeper drop, man. I step up. No, I got you. So now what happens is maybe I switch up sets. Instead of taking vertical sets, maybe I jump set, right? As it pertains to how we're going to attack this particular person and get on them quicker. And now it just becomes a drive block to where I widen them out farther in the pocket, right? There's ways that we have to execute. The game is never going to be the way that it's coached, right? The way that it's coached is we expect them to do this. And when they do this, based off our expectation, we'll do this. Well, guess what? Mike Tyson is a great philosopher. He once said, everybody got a plan until you get punched in the face. So now we have to reevaluate and we have to execute. So I don't make excuses for the quarterback dropping back too deep. We understand that that's a thing. Now we have to figure out a way to get that blocked, because at the end of the day, that's what you guys have me out here for, and that's what the guys get paid the big bucks to do.
Yeah, I got to ask you, the one thing that I think a lot of Texas fans, and I talked to CJ about this too, are concerned about is the death by 1,000 cuts offense that Vanderbilt has. Just sucking the time away, 7.5-minute drives like Mississippi State had. As a defense, what's the mentality that changes that? Or what do you do to change that up to keep a team from being able to sit there and just nickel and dime you all the way down the field?
You execute on third downs. You're highly aware of the sticks. You're highly aware of the situation. Like, guys, when I look at the game, like, I was one of these guys to where I ask a lot of questions. As you can see, my energy level, I might need to check and see if I got ADHD, because my energy level be like, for real. Like, I got all these kids, and like, I'll be wearing them out sometimes. It's like, bro, like, what's happening? We here, right? But like, I was the guy that wanted to know everything about the offense. All right, coach. I know we're running a K-pack protection where we're blocking 4 down and we're sliding to the wheel. But what I need to understand is what happens if those safeties rotate and now we have backers that are offset? Because I saw this look on tape and they run across. What do we do then? Well, damn, Tony. Let's get to the. All right, my bad. I was just, I just wanted to know, right? How is the defense? How's the offense moving? If I'm a defender, if we're I'm looking at 50s. 50s show me exactly what an offense is. So from their goal line to the 50, how are they? Are they run heavy? Are they pass heavy? Do they like speed outs? Do they like mid game? Will they take deep shots on their side of the field? Right. Okay. If it's 3rd and 3, are they heavily favored to pass, or do they like rundowns in those particular situations? Right. As a linebacker, can I cheat up a little bit? Right. As a cornerback, do I play when we're in zone? I know I might need to play 7 yards, but I know they need 3 yards for a first down. Can I cheat it and play 6? Right. So I can break faster. Like, these are the type of details and the intricate thoughts of the game that have to happen when you're talking about championship caliber mindset. So I think that how this works, Bobby, is they have to have a high intensity of attentiveness on 3rd down. Right. And then first down is important. 1st and 3rd. Why is first down important? Because you can't give up 5 and 6 yards on first down and expect to stop them. Because now we have 2 times to get a first down at 4 yards at the 4-yard mark. The numbers on that as an offensive player are tremendously high. We can do whatever we want. We can come back and hit you with play action. We can run the ball if we want to. We can take a deep shot on our 30. Why? Because we know we can get this 4-yard with a click slant, or if you blitz us, we can hit you with a hot. So it's like, first down is important to set the tone, and 3rd down is important to get off the field. So if I'm thinking about this thing defensively, we cannot give any penetration in the gut when we're dealing with Vanderbilt. And quite frankly, I know that we have some madmen on the edge, but we need more push in the pocket when it comes to passing downs from our defensive linemen. Listen, I need Collins to come on. You're the guy. Broughton, come on. Listen, this is one of those games where y'all got to get loose and wreak havoc on this quarterback because he wants to run around, but he can't do that when he has pressure right in his lap, right? And then the edge guys will close that off. So that's how I look at it this week.
Good stuff, Tony. Tony Hills, guys, former Longhorn, former NFL player, joins us each and every Wednesday on Hump Day with Hills. Tony, thanks for your time, buddy. Hope we're talking next week about a Longhorn win over the Commodores. Be good, bud.
Well, tell them this, Bobby. Tell Longhorn faithful to stay strong, baby. We right where we need to be.
That's the truth. That's the truth. That's one of the things we've been talking about. I appreciate it, Tony.
All right.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Be good, buddy. Yeah, I mean, he's 100% right, guys. I mean, Texas is 6-1, right where they need to be. This is where 95% of us thought they would be heading into the 8th game of the season, right? All the college football playoff opportunities still in front of you. They just have to do what Tony said and respond to adversity and execute. Hey, CJ, I want to bring something else up because we talked a little bit about at the end, and I know you've done a little bit of research on this, and that is Texas's third down defense versus Vanderbilt's third down offense. Because I think Texas has been really good this year on third down, right? Very good. Vanderbilt's been pretty good on third down offense to keep the chains moving. Those are the two strengths of these two teams right now. Would you agree with that? And how do you think this plays out in reality on Saturday?
It's been a big point of emphasis over the last year and a half for the Texas Longhorns on getting off the field on third downs, right? That was an issue in 2022. And, you look at it and you saw teams going for on third and fourth downs and having great success, lengthening drives to about 5 to 7 minutes. And it put Texas behind the 8 ball. And we saw a year ago, Texas was the best third down team in the entire country. And you're thinking, all right, this is great. How do you duplicate this? I thought Texas was fine on third downs against Georgia. They were 5 of 17. That's normally pretty good. Anytime your opponent's third down percentage starts with a 2, I think you're doing something right. And to Texas's credit, they did a fine job against Georgia in that game, defensively, really in general. But to your point about Vanderbilt and its strength, they're 5th in the country right now in third down conversions, 51.6%. So when you talk about Texas being good, Vanderbilt offensively is great. And I think that's where having a guy like Diego Pavia with his legs, with his gamesmanship almost, he called him the definition of grit. And when you watch him play football, again, I mentioned this a little bit earlier this week, he's not Johnny Manziel, but he has those tendencies, right? To just let me take over the game individually and find a play with my legs while looking down the field to make a play with my arm. And for a 5'10" quarterback, he certainly looks the part of a Manziel. Again, maybe not as gifted athletically, but that's why he's so difficult. And that's why Vanderbilt is so difficult to defend on short third downs and even long third downs, because, again, they have some talent now. Cedric Alexander, a kid from Austin LBJ, he's a heck of a football running back. And, that wasn't the case at Vanderbilt over the last decade plus. But they've got some guys right now that can make life difficult. They stay ahead in the chains. They don't have an average length of to go on third downs that's very long. And because of that, when you can get into third and short and third and medium, and you got a guy like Diego Pavia who leads the team with 430 rushing yards, things become pretty difficult to defend on all aspects. It's all about containment, but also playing sound in the second. The secondary issue is whenever those plays do extend, it's much more difficult as a cornerback or a safety to stick side by side with your guy, and that's where these conversions come into play.
What I'm looking at really is two of the better parts of these teams. If there is one stat that they stand out on, it is that third down efficiency, CJ, from a Vanderbilt perspective. That means they're staying on the field, and that's why they're so high in time of possession. Texas has been really, really good on third down defense. If we're looking for an early tell in how this game may go, third down defense for the Longhorns may be that early.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to get to y'all's questions and comments here in just a moment. But first, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone out there about Hargrove Roofing.
Yeah, Hargrove Roofing, know who's on your roof. Thank you very much to our friends over at Hargrove Roofing with offices all over Louisiana and Arkansas, and of course, Texas, including Austin. Hargrove Roofing will take care of all of your roofing needs, plus they're Longhorn friendly. With partners like our kicker, Bert Auburn, and former defensive tackle, Stevie Lee, they are the most pro burnt orange roofing company out there. Call them today for a free roof inspection. Hargrove Roofing, know who's on your roof, 512-645-3202. They have offices throughout the great state of Texas, or go to hargroveroofing.com.
Thank you for that, Bobby. And we're going to jump right into it, guys. We got questions, we got comments, we got super chats. And we're going to start with this one here from Mike. And man, Mike must be having a good time. It says, good morning from the Norwegian breakaway cruise ship. We just pulled into Portland, Maine, and I had to tune in for coffee and football. How confident are you guys that he gets right for Vandy? They are very dangerous. Hook 'em. I'm assuming he means Quinn Ewers.
Yeah,
that's a heck of a destination right there. A nice little Norwegian cruise ship, Bobby. That must be nice, smooth sailing over there. Maybe not as much as this Texas offense over the past few weeks, but for Quinn, I'm confident that they turn it around this weekend. And why am I confident? Well, Vanderbilt defensively is still, I don't want to put it, in a bad way here, but they're still Vanderbilt defensively, right? That record is great. The win over Alabama is great. They still lost to Georgia State. They're still 91st in points per drive allowed defensively. And that, to me, screams opportunity for the Texas defense. Again, Quinn needs to be better. That offensive line needs to be better. And folks need to catch the football when it's thrown to them, especially ones that are right in their chest, right? And that's been an issue over the last few weeks. One of them was an interception earlier this year. Another one negated a 30, 45, maybe a touchdown against Georgia this past weekend. So my point is it has to be a collective group. Now, for Quinn specifically, Vanderbilt can get after the quarterback a little bit. Their best edge rusher, Sidnor, he 12 pressures, 4 sacks, and he's only played 5 games. So he can go a little bit in the SEC in terms of SEC caliber edge rushers. For Quinn, it's all about being decisive. I want him to see him stand in that pocket. I want to see him take a hit while making a throw without fading away. Will that be the case? Will he have a completely different mindset than what we've seen the last 2 weeks? I don't know. I don't think so. But that kind of has to be what we expect moving forward, because that's just the level of NFL quarterback that they expect in the NFL. And that's kind of the level that he's being held to right now, and he's not lived up to it over the last few weeks. However, again, Vanderbilt, Texas has more speed. They have more athleticism on the outside. If Quinn can get the ball there, Texas should be able to make some plays in space. So if there was ever a time on this schedule to bounce back in the SEC, I would say this would be one of them.
I got to agree with the person that just posted before, Blake. If you could bring that back up, it was ASEC Mimosas. Turn it around is the wrong word. Vandy plays soft shell. Quinn will complete a lot of short throws, and Texas will win, but that doesn't necessarily indicate progress. I agree with one exception. Texas can execute better even than what it's been doing, and that is improvement. So Texas, to CJ's point, where he just talked about dropping passes, missing blocks, timing is poor, they can actually show progress and get back to where they were earlier in the season, where they showed a lot of progress and showed that execution level at a high level. If you recall Michigan, did they do much wrong against Michigan in the first half? No, they executed extraordinarily well. And so I do think even if Vanderbilt plays that soft shell and Texas throws the ball and gets its playmakers in space, it's still there for Texas. Okay. I would challenge that. The thing that we may not see, okay, and this is the real sign of progress that we're going to have to see from Quinn Ewers and from Texas generally, for Texas to be a college football playoff team, is Quinn's got to be better when there's a dirty pocket. I firmly believe that. There's too many good defensive linemen in this conference, too many good defensive coaches, and too much speed on opposing defenses for a quarterback not to be able to handle a dirty pocket. And so when CJ talks off the bat about not going back off your back foot, about stepping up into the pocket, That's the sign of progress you're looking for from Quinn Ewers that will allow Texas to maximize as a team. You're right. You may not see all of that against Vanderbilt, okay, because of who they are. You've got to see that against A&M, Arkansas, Kentucky, Florida. They have NFL defensive players. You're going to have a dirty pocket, and you're going to be asked to perform. And so while Vanderbilt may not show or indicate true progress, there is some value of that here that you can improve on with execution. But I hear where they're coming from. It's just there's a little bit of a nuance to it.
And Jesse, thank you for your super chat. He says, Quinn requires a lot of check downs and bubble screens to warm up, and sometimes it doesn't happen. I believe Arch allows you to go all gas, no brakes.
I think there's some truth to that. Quinn is best suited whenever he starts throwing the ball to the sideline first and then starts hunting and pecking downfield, starts throwing an over route. Jesse, I agree with you. And Sark hasn't necessarily done that the last two games. He hasn't started off OU or Georgia with that type of play. He's tried to go downfield first. Maybe that changes.
Yeah. In fact, it could be a good tendency breaker. You know, Rod Babers talks about it all the time. You got to bring some sort of wrinkles to games that you have to win. Georgia, I thought, did a tremendous job of not even respecting the deep shot for the Texas offense. And, you know, for Quinn specifically, what was so special about that Michigan game? Well, he was great under pressure. He was making throws on the run, different platforms. He was evading pressure in the pocket and making throws down the field with confidence. And that's not been the case since he's returned from injury. So I don't want to pin everything on the injury, but I don't know. It's been a completely different, timid quarterback since his return. And those throws down the field against Georgia, they were underthrown about 5-6 yards on each one. And, you know, they paid off. Matthew Golden made a great adjustment to the football. One of them was also a defensive pass interference. So that's great. But to truly run this Texas offense, you're going to need that deep shot, or at least the threat of it. And right now, I don't think teams are respecting the threat of the deep shot at all. And as a result, you can sit on these underneath routes, come make a play and rally to the football, just as Georgia did this past weekend. There's got to be something for Quinn. And I think it starts with fully getting the ball aired out down the field, at least early in the game, to make them respect it.
As long as they do that and don't go 3 and out. That has been my biggest issue, CJ, with Sark earlier in his career, or was one of my biggest issues with Sark early in his career. I'm fine to air it out to keep safeties honest. I really am. I think that's part of the game. But you can't do that 3 or 4 times in a half and end up going 3 and out, or that can't be a 2nd and 10 and all of a sudden you're 3rd and 10 and don't make it on 3rd down.
Yeah.
That's you have to find the right times to do that and test it, because it has proven with Quinn Ewers to be a very low percentage play. It would be different. I mean, Arch Manning, it's actually been a reasonably high percentage play, right? With Quinn Ewers throwing the deep ball, it's been a relatively low percentage play.
Our next super chat comes from Jeff Carey. And Jeff says, everyone should be pulling for Quinn to have a great game, even if you're a big Arch fan. By the way, love y'all's work. Today, I'm sending a virtual hug to CJ.
Well, happy Wednesday, Jeff. Thank you very much for the super chat. And I'll send my virtual hug back to you right now. How about that?
Hey, people are that are just joining us. We mentioned this in the first 10 minutes of this broadcast. Jerry Hamilton is not with us today because he's headed to the East Coast to go check on some recruits. Right now, he's actually on I-10 and headed that way. So we'll see what he has to say later this afternoon when he gets down there, or this evening when he gets down there. But Jerry is not with us. CJ doing the manly thing and stepping in for Jerry this morning. We appreciate it, Jerry. CJ, even though he's got that shirt on right now that you can see through. I mean, man, you can see that at night.
Wednesday's laundry day, Bobby. Cut me a break here. All my 40 acres apparel's in the wash. We got to get that clean for the trip to Nashville.
He's just coordinating with the super chat colors too. So, see? Matt Hanley with the super chat. He says, I've always been worried about Sark being head coach and offensive coordinator. Big games, he seems to get lost with play calling at times. Am I the only one with this concern?
I don't know if I totally buy that. I mean, listen, I think in each of these big games, for the most part, you see Texas go on a run. And I think that starts with play calling. You could be critical of the start, perhaps, right? That Georgia start wasn't pretty. Oklahoma start wasn't pretty. Even to an extent, the Alabama game on the road in Tuscaloosa wasn't too pretty when Texas had to settle for field goals early in that game as well. But in the same instance, you've seen big plays occur because of play calling. Alabama, Michigan, Texas finding a way to make that game interesting against Washington. You could argue if it weren't for 2 fumbles, Texas wins that game. And I don't think fumbles have anything to do with the play calling from Steve Sarkisian. Execution, of course, is a one thing. Play call is another. I haven't been overly upset with the play calling, especially against Georgia. When you go back and you watch the tape from an all-22 view, and I think there's a great breakdown I shared on Texas Football last night, you see Georgia did a tremendous job mixing up coverages, showing something, playing something completely different, doing so right at the snap so it couldn't be diagnosed by the Texas front or the quarterback. And that changes exactly what was planned prior to the headset or to the call by Steve Sarkisian. And, the interception from Quinn Ewers, right? It was a great play by the Georgia quarterback, Everett. Quinn's expecting Gunnar Helm to stem a little bit to the sideline to create some space from the cornerback and the linebacker. I was told Sarkisian's in the headset saying, yeah, I know exactly what look we're going to get. I know exactly where this ball is going to go. And Quinn put the ball where it needed to go. It was just a better football play by the cornerback. And it was one that a step to the outside by Gunnar Helm, in my eyes, would have been the difference in terms of creating space. So the play calling hasn't been an issue. It's been the execution, and a large reason for that has fallen on the shoulders of the quarterback.
Yeah, I want to say this. I don't think it's him being there. That is an age-old question of whether or not a head coach should be a coordinator. Age-old question. And I think that it can work both ways. I mean, it worked for Steve Spurrier. It all depends on the coach. It works for any number of coaches out there that call their own plays, whether it's offense or defense. I do think that as the head coach, you have to be in tune with both sides of the ball. And that can be hard if you're sitting there trying to call plays. You can't be going and talking to the defense during the middle of an offensive drive. So that's where you need, and I frankly think that's why they brought Pete Kwiatkowski down on the field and year 1 and year 2. And now with Johnny Nansen, it's another reason why Johnny Nansen's on the field right now, so that they have that guy that's in the face of the defense and commands that a little bit. So I hear you. I think there's more than one way to skin the cat, so to speak, as it relates to quarterback, the calling plays, or being a head coach. I've seen too many guys that call themselves a head coach or CEO, and the last 5 to 10 years of their career are kind of because they've kind of lost touch with what got them there in the first place. Bob Stoops comes to mind a little bit because he was a tremendous defensive coach, and then his defense just got ran all over as he became more and more of a CEO. So
we're going to switch over to the running game here. As Odin Horn says, OTF, please talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Horns running game, and how much is the average running game of Texas hurting Quinn?
That's interesting.
It hurt him a lot against Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be it hurt Texas a lot, because when you can run the ball, it will slow down the pass rush. Full stop. And so if you don't establish that run, and you have Georgia pinning their ears back on 3rd and 10 because you had 2 incomplete passes on first and 10, or you had a 1-yard run, it hurts. It hurts any quarterback, in my opinion. So how much so it's hard to determine. But again, some of that falls on Quinn too. And this is what I'm talking about. He has to learn how to handle a dirty pocket better. And he can't make okay issues bad. And what I mean by that is There was a play where Georgia had a 3-man rush, and they weren't anywhere close to Quinn, but the routes got finished. The players were starting to break off their routes, but Quinn didn't have any pressure, yet he decided to escape the pocket for no reason instead of give his receivers time to run around because he didn't have a great feel for the pocket. He escapes left. Georgia tackles him for, I think, a 2-yard gain or something. You know, he's got to play that part of the game better, in my opinion. That's the biggest piece.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about complementary football from offense and defense, but in you know, a lot of reasons it needs to be more so about within the offense. That run game needs to help the offense, or that pass game. The pass game needs to help that run game. And over the last few weeks, you know, it's been one-sided in the sense Texas didn't have a run game really against Georgia, but Texas didn't really have a pass game against Oklahoma for the most part and relied on that run game with 2 big runs from Trey Wisner to put points on the board. There's got to be a balance, and it starts with the run game in my eyes. Georgia was tremendous in the wide zones, which is kind of Texas's bread and butter, especially what we saw against Oklahoma the week prior. If Texas can get back to that success, I think that would be huge. And, you know, I see some discourse about Jaden Blue not having a touch or not having a carry, right? I don't have an issue really with how Jaden Blue was used. I looked at it in the sense that he's much better when he doesn't really have to think about where the ball's going. But with that said, he can't become a one-dimensional, he's on the field, we know a pass play's coming. There's got to be some rush plays for him. There's got to be some switch-ups or change-ups that are called for Jaden Blue in the running game as well. That speed is special, and there aren't many guys that can catch up to him in space. The issue is he's not yet found space in the run game the way that we thought he would. So find what he's good at and go to that when he's on the field. That's one of the things I hope the Texas staff finds this weekend against Vanderbilt.
All right, guys. Then our next question is going to come from Johnny Epps. Well, more of a comment. He says, I think we can start using a nickel blitz more to disrupt quarterbacks. We have the speed at linebacker to cover a slot wide receiver. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't hate that. You know, the one thing I would caution there is, you know, if a linebacker is coming on the blitz too, you got to have a linebacker for the running back, which means you're going to have a safety for that nickel or that slot wide receiver. With Texas thin at safety, I think that limits a little bit more of what you could do from the nickel spot or that star spot because you need your best guys in coverage against a guy that can create and extend like a Diego Pavia. So that is an interesting wrinkle for Jalen Gilbo to defend and also play off the edge in containment. Texas hasn't called a lot of edge rush or, you know, kind of off the edge blitzes from Jalen Gilbo this year. We've seen some from the safety position. You know, Michael Taft had a big sack against Oklahoma. And I believe Andrew Makuba had more blitzes in this Georgia game than we've seen the entire season. So that's kind of where we've seen the safeties, the secondary blitzes from. But I'm with you. I think you could certainly throw up, you know, some new looks with Jalen Gilbo this weekend.
All right. And then Edward says, good morning, gentlemen. Does Texas instill fear into any other SEC team?
I don't know. I don't know that. You know, I think that the Texas style of offense right now may not do that because the rest of the way they're defensive heavy teams in many respects, in my opinion. Let's see. I do think that how Texas rushes the passer against Vanderbilt and how they can keep Pavia hemmed in may prove to be a recipe for how they defend DJ Lagway for Florida and Taylon Green for Arkansas. So it's not a bad thing that Texas is going to see Pavia this week and then Taylon Green and Lagway soon because those are all 3 guys that can hurt you with their feet. So scared or worried? I don't know. I mean, is anybody in the SEC worried about somebody else? I don't know. I don't know that that's the case.
Before we get to our last sets of questions, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone out there about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm.
Yeah, absolutely. Every Wednesday, Adam sponsors the Coffee and Football edition of On Texas Football. you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, please reach out to Adam at loeylawfirm.com. He's been helping injured Texans for more than 20 years now. Again, injured in an automobile accident of any kind, Adam and his team offer a free consultation to let you know whether they think you're due some level of compensation. loeylawfirm.com. Thank you, Adam, very much for your sponsorship.
Okay, thank you for that, Bobby. And then our next question here comes from Britt. And Britt says, when Texas had a good third quarter, how come they couldn't keep it going into the fourth? Is it because Georgia had even another gear?
Georgia adapted and changed up its defense a little bit. They started bringing more blitzes. They were getting home with 4. They started bringing 5. They started bringing the linebackers. When Texas started feeling some level of rhythm on offense, Britt, Georgia mixed it up. So, yeah, they had another gear because they weren't tested really in the first half. When you're not tested in the first half, you don't have to show those looks early. You can show them later. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, Texas also didn't have the benefit of, only 10 yards to go for a touchdown, right? I think making them earn it, and that's where the field position game was so crucial in this game is short fields are, that's a killer for a defense.
Georgia's average starting possession for the game was the 47. Okay. The first 4 drives for Texas's starting possession was at the 13-yard line. That played a role in what Texas could really do as well. But as far as late, did Georgia have something saved? Yes, they did, because they didn't have to use it earlier. So what would have happened if there were another quarter of adaptation? It's a good question. We may see it in the next game, actually, if they play again.
And then Football Texas says, Bobby, CJ, what does Vanderbilt's passing game look like? I feel if we stop their ground game, we can clamp down on their overall offense.
That's been the MO, right? CJ, I've watched 2 full Vanderbilt games. The amount of times they've done a true drop back pass, maybe less than 10 all year. It's always off of a fake or a play fake or whatever you want to call it, but it's never maybe a rollout, bootleg, that sort of thing. They very rarely do any kind of straight drops.
Yeah, they're 73rd in the country in passing yards per game at around 215, 220. They're in that range. Again, they do a great job of moving the pocket. And again, I believe that's a little bit more to suit the skill set of Diego Pavia, but also a straight pass set against that offensive line is not going to bode well for them long-term in the SEC. It's exactly why Oklahoma with Michael Hawkins was trying to roll him out as often as they could against Texas. And I think that's going to be more of the case against Vanderbilt this weekend. The true drop backs are not what they like to do. They like to get Pavia on the run to allow those legs to become a factor as well. It'll be interesting to see what wrinkles they throw in, because every team, when they play Texas, will have something just as Texas does to them. To me, it'll be straight, long extended play action dropbacks. We'll see what they kind of bring to the table this weekend.
A lot of questions in the chat, guys, about punting, the punter. Greg Jackson, for example, our punting is awful right now. We lost 20 yards per possession versus their punter. But a lot of people want to know, will Texas have their punter back this week? Have y'all heard anything?
Michael Kern has been available for the last 2 weeks, guys. I think Ian Ratliff may have won the job. So, Michael Kern has not been on the injury report, and Ian Ratliff punted. Okay. There were years past where you could say, oh, well, maybe Kern's still injured. You can't say that anymore. He's not on the injury report. And so I think that Kern had issues with consistency, and Ratliff at least has been consistent fairly. Now, it hasn't been a great deal of consistency or a great move in the fact that he's not as good as Ryan Sanborn, for example. He had 4 punts on Saturday, and 2 of them were touchbacks. That's not good. You know, when you want to pin somebody back inside the 10, you want to pin them back inside the 10. Give your defense a chance to make a big play. And so I think that Texas is struggling at punter right now a little bit. You know, so we'll see what all happens. Hopefully that's not a big issue on Saturday, because I do agree the difference between the punting game at Georgia and the punting game at Texas was one of a championship caliber team versus one that's an also ran. I mean, and that includes not just the punting, that includes 2 holding calls on kick return and punt return, just making a bad situation worse. Really disappointed in special teams overall right now.
We'll go just 1 or 2 more, guys. South KMX says, we keep talking about playing to a standard, but what standard has our offense been playing to?
Not a good one.
Not the last 2 weeks. Not the last
2 weeks. Well, really the last 3 weeks. You know, you throw Arch in against Mississippi State, it was an ugly start because of turnovers. You only had, 14 points off of at halftime. One of them was a 3rd and 8 where you just kind of truck up a prayer to DeAndre Moore. I mean, the consistency in moving the ball to create points on the board has not been there for the Texas offense. A lot of their points have come on big plays, and that's great. But when you play a Georgia defense, that's not going to bust. When you play, you know, a defense like an Ohio State and Oregon that makes you earn every single yard, those big bust plays are not going to be there. So Texas has to find that rhythm once again, and it starts with the quarterback. It starts with that offensive line, the run game, and that's been the issue right now. There's just not been consistency. There's not been that force of will to move the football down the field themselves, whereas you're relying on a Trey Wisner to get loose or an Isaiah Bond to catch the ball and take off down the sideline. That's been where Texas's offense has been recently, and that's not a great place to be going into the heart of your schedule.
And then our last one for today comes from Ryan Nelson, and he says, Bobby, you said the book is out on Quinn. Do you think Clark Lee will blitz him often?
If he can get home, if he thinks he has a way to do it, he should. Anything to make Quinn speed up his process, I would do if I'm an opposing coach, because he's not thinking quickly and reacting. He may be thinking quickly, but not reacting quickly right now. And when he has been reacting quickly, it hasn't been a positive. It's been throwing off his back foot. It's been, kind of being flummoxed by the whole situation. We'll see. I would if I could find a way to get home. I'm not going to just, blitz to be blitzing. We'll see if he thinks he can get home, because he should. He absolutely should blitz Quinn. I mean, anybody that's looking at Texas right now that thinks they can speed up his decision-making process, because his decision-making process has not been good overall against the blitz.
All right, y'all. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. We want to thank them, along with Hargrove Roofing, both for sponsoring today's show. Thank you all for tuning in. The great questions, the super chats. Bobby, what you got coming up later today?
We got State of the Program. Myself and CJ, as well as Jerry's going to stop and make a little talk here for State of the Program. And then also later today, we have Football Theory, I believe, coming up, as well as the live stream. And don't forget, I want to make sure we do this one more time, Blake, if you don't mind, where we're going to be meeting pregame in Nashville. If you're lucky enough to be able to come up and go to the game, please join us at the local in Nashville. It opens around 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. First come, first serve. $30 buckets of beer. It's got an indoor-outdoor patio, including a couple of different bar areas. It is literally about 250 to 300 yards from the stadium. Thank them for that. Again, the address there, 110 28th Avenue North, Nashville, Tennessee. It's an easy Uber ride from downtown. Just take an Uber to the venue if you want to go do that with us. We'll be there till about 2:30 on game day, visiting with folks and hanging out.
There you go. Thank you for that, Bobby. And if you haven't become a member, then you ought to go check out ontexasfootball.com. Come join in on the discussion. Great community going on over there. Lots of hot topics of conversation. You can use promo code OTFOG. You'll get a full year for for just $39.95. Again, promo code OTFOG for $39.95 for a year at ontexasfootball.com. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. We would love to have you over there as well. And then don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't, and ring the bell so you're notified anytime we go live or post content. Well, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow. CJ, thank you again for stepping in for Jerry. We appreciate it as always. And for CJ Vogel and Bobby Burton, I'm Blake Monroe.